Thank you all for being here. We are wrapping up the day with Brendan Eich, founder and CEO of Brave. Brendan, thank you for being here, flying in from San Francisco.
My pleasure.
I guess let's start things off. Can you just tell us about your background? How did you end up doing this?
I am a Netscape E, rare breed who was at their dawn of the web. I came a little late. I was there at early 95. I did JavaScript, famously. I did an interview with Lex Fridman earlier this year. You can hear all about it. It's 3 hours. Founded Mozilla after standardizing JavaScript. Did Firefox, restarted the browser market. Did the search deal with Google that I think, in combination with getting Google interested in browsers as well as search, led to Chrome. And then did Brave because I wanted to make a better browser for myself and friends, and I think everybody in the world. And I also wanted to do crypto in the browser because I was planning to block a lot of ad tech that would cut off normal payment flow.
I didn't realize you had worked on some of the stuff that inspired Google to do Chrome. Where did that go?
That was all toiling away at Mozilla, keeping the lights on for a browser that wasn't Internet Explorer. And then when we finally named it right after 2 renamings as Firefox, it took off. And it became so successful that after Safari did a famous search deal in 2003 with Google, we did one with Google for Firefox that started making more money than we thought was possible, just from our few million users at the time who were really good advanced users. I asked Sergey Brin, why were we making so much money? He said, because your users search better, they refine their searches, and they buy more.
So you know how to find the power users on the internet.
Yeah, I think I'm doing it again. I hope so.
I remember when I moved to Firefox and then to Chrome and now to Brave.
Yep.
OK, so you started working on Brave 4, 5, 6 years ago. Why?
So I wanted to do a better browser because I was sick of tracking in ads, but I wasn't just against ads. I had this sort of ecological mindset a lot of people who are lead users have, people who are well off and think about systems problems. Like if you cut off ads, then you can be one of these sort of misanthropic Hacker News /dot type people who's like, burn the system, kill all the ads, I don't care. But if you think about it in incremental terms, maybe there's a better way to avoid cutting off all the publishers' revenue and putting them in an adversarial position where they're trying to countervail your ad blocker, which they do, and they can't really do well. So I thought, what if there's a way to connect fans and creators to get rid of all the ad tech intermediaries that take 70% of the gross? I'm not kidding. The Guardian in the UK did an experiment where for a month they bought out their own ad inventory, their ad space, and they got 30 pence on the pound. So I realized if we can disintermediate that parasitic system, we can reconnect people more directly with crypto, we can have a reasonable fee, we can even share revenue with users, which is part of what we're doing with Basic Attention Token.
Can you describe a little more about the whole how did the ad tech ecosystem evolve to here in the quick summary version?
Oh, man. So I did JavaScript in 1995. The year before, in 1994, Lou Montulli at Netscape made the cookie, which is a little bit of storage in the browser indexed by, let's say, the site, the top-level domain, and can be used to store authentication token for your login. Without the cookie, you'd have to log in every time you navigated to a different account view in your bank. Nobody wanted that, so the cookie solved that. And unfortunately, it had the same property for third parties embedded in the page. They could keep track of you across multiple pages, and that led to tracking, that led to the company that became DoubleClick, which Google bought in 2008. It led to a whole set of problems that privacy regulators and now antitrust regulators are putting Google in the dock over. And JavaScript just made it easy to do what cookies already enabled in conjunction with images. But when we were doing Firefox, we were busy just making a better browser, tabs and pop-up blocking and things like that, extensions. So we weren't thinking about this enough, and the extensions were where innovators started blocking tracking, and that's what I thought should be built into the browser in Brave. So Brave built it in from the start, and it's an adversarial game that iterates, so you have to do research on it. So we do machine learning, we do web crawls, we do very advanced fingerprinting defense.
What is this game?
The tracker's the adversary, let's say.
It's like a cat and mouse thing.
Yeah, cat and mouse game. And they keep improving their techniques. And I was going to mention fingerprinting, because one way they do it is not to track you with an identifier, like in a cookie. They try to form a sort of statistical identifier just from reading bits that your JavaScript APIs in your browser and your device shed. And Brave is taking a unique approach. We're actually, for third parties and where we can do it, we're injecting noise to confound them. We're not making everybody have the same fingerprint, because that has problems. We're not just letting you be fingerprinted. We're actually having robust fingerprinting defense as well as tracking protection.
Okay, so, well, you just give us an overview. It's Brave is a browser, but like, why is it an important browser? What's the point of it?
Yeah, browsers are kind of the universal app. We noticed this when we were doing Firefox and then Chrome was coming up. We saw that time in the browser was keeping other apps from rising. Even when you had an iPad or a tablet, you spent more time in the browser. The smaller the screen and the more the native apps were advantaged by Apple and Android, Google, keeping them privileged and having new APIs, you were forced into those apps, but people hated apps. And pretty soon, people were saying, I'm uninstalling apps. I want to live in the browser. I'm going to use the M site. I realized that the browser could actually be much better than it is, because Apple and Google both have a conflict of interest. They want to develop their native app stack and make money through the App Store and special APIs, and especially the in-app payment API. They don't really want the browser to be as good as it could be. So we're doing things in Brave to make YouTube better. Like, we're making a playlist where you can keep videos you save. You can't upload them. There's no piracy. But you can keep them to play in the background. You can play them anytime you want. You can play them from the lock screen. And that's coming to Android. And it's a better video player. It has better controls. If you ever use the mobile YouTube site in a phone, it's got these teeny little controls. It's just garbage. We're making the sites that should be great in the browser great by using the superpower of the browser to add some value. Like, ad blocking protects you. Playlist adds some extra content features. We also add a tip button on tweets and Reddit posts, you may have noticed.
Why are people switching from other browsers to Brave?
So having done this a couple of times, arguably 3, Netscape had to take over from Mosaic, and then Firefox restarted the market. And now I'm doing it with Brave. You get lead users who are more technical, they're more savvy, they're more conscious of the privacy problems, they're more interested in things like crypto, for decentralization, for sovereignty, like you mentioned with Tushar, for lots of reasons. And you get those users and treat them well. We even do customer support on Twitter and Reddit, where all the big browsers are like making fun of their users, and it leaks out on Twitter. It's really abusive. It's not good. We actually listen to our lead users because they tell us about bugs to fix.
I do tweet at Brave from time to time.
I appreciate that. When you work on software as long as I have, you realize any significant program, a 100-line program, like freshman students learn the hard way, has too many bugs. And you don't necessarily have to find and fix them all. You have to find and fix the ones that burn your users, especially your valued users. So we're making the browser great at many levels. And that customer support is one angle. Crypto in the browser is another. And if you think about the browser as this universal app, it can actually go the distance. You've seen browser-based OSs tried before. Palm did it. Initially, the iPhone, Jobs said, the web finally works. And that was his app model. Native apps came 8 months later because they had to port some games that were written in C++. So the browser could be the new runtime. You talked about there can only 2 operating systems or 2 chipset architectures. Everything's moving to JavaScript and WebAssembly. And browsers can also be competitive with hardware now in many scales. So I think if you work on the browser enough, you can even have an OS. People want to know when Brave OS is coming. I can make no promises.
I was one of the first Chrome OS users, CR48. I still have one.
We did Firefox OS, and our friends at Google on Chrome OS said, we'd like to put Chrome OS on phones, but we're not allowed because of Android.
OK, so you said a lot of people switch to Brave because they want more crypto stuff in the browser. So let's talk, what is the crypto stuff in the Brave browser?
It's a great question. I mean, I have this joke that goes back to the Firefox days where we were doing innovative things, and Opera, I had friends at the time in Norway, it's kind of a Chinese company now, was always doing innovative things too. And so we would do something in Firefox and everyone would say, this is great. And then some Opera fan in the back would say, Opera had it first. And then it's like, that's right. And Firefox grew much bigger on desktop than Opera did. Opera made a go at mobile. And now it's happening again, because in 2018, into the teeth of crypto winter, Opera did do like Ethereum integration, a wallet, a self-custody wallet. They did dApps. And I was at Brave doing basic attention token. We were doing a wallet based on MetaMask, but it wasn't ready, and we didn't get it out. So I think some people, possibly you, think we were a little lukewarm on crypto. We weren't. We were trying to line up our ducks. And one of the best ways we did that was to grow our user base. It's like 46 million this month. If we get the right tailwinds into the end of the year, we might get 50 million by the end of the year. And we have almost 8 million basic attention token users using basically a wallet that you won't see on chain because it's too expensive on chain. But that's right, and we announced the Solana deal. We'll talk about that, and all our numbers are up. So if we can push into the end of the year like this, I think now's the time to hit self-custody hard, because I'm a believer in self-custody, and I think that's where you already had all the crypto, believers, and we want to make their life great, but we want to also get their friends and relatives who aren't into crypto or that aren't that technical to use it. You think about the username and the password. It took 25 years to teach people how to use that, including recovery. And then a lot of outfits have to add a second factor, obligate app or device, like Google Authenticator. It's almost like self-custody is better. There's a little more risk because you're taking your keys in your hands and you could lose them. You can't send an email to somebody and try to prove you're the same person and recover your account. But it's almost like self-custody is competitive, or should be competitive, with the old sign-up model.
All right, so you did you just referred to a lot of different things. Let's touch on BAT first.
Sure.
So in May of 2017, you did a token sale for a thing called Basic Attention Token, or BAT for short. Why? What is BAT? What is it? What are you doing with it?
So our plan from the start was crypto in the browser to allow fans to connect with creators, to allow subscribers to pay publishers without going through the ad tech complex that was taking 70%, or going through a subscriber paywall that overcharged you, tried to cross-subsidize a bunch of content you wouldn't read, allowed you to buy by the yard, bypass the soft paywall. We started with Bitcoin. We built a full prototype in Bitcoin, but there were a couple of problems. One, we couldn't do ads with it. Two, people had to buy the Bitcoin themselves. And we had new users who were coming onto Bitcoin. They should have been buying a lot to hold, but they would go through the monthly buying process with a Coinbase Buy widget, and it would have fees that went up to 90% due to the block size problem. And between the problems of people having to buy the Bitcoin out of their own generosity to give as tips or subscriptions, and the slowness and congestion and cost of the network, we said, let's do something different. Let's use smart contracts. Let's aim for a future where we can actually have a triangular flow. The advertisers, for those who want private ads, will put in the gross spending. The user gets 70%. You can see how much we settle with users when the advertiser pays us in fiat on Brave.com transparency, if you go to that page. Other users will pay and donate. There'll be other models for e-commerce and subscriptions. And the publishers will get a better deal than the 30 pence on the pound, like The Guardian got. So that's why we did the BAT. It allowed us to evolve away from a sort of two-sided ecosystem toward a three-sided system with smart contracts. But it was on Ethereum, and of course, all the Bitcoin maxis were like, oh, Ethereum's going to congest too, just you wait. And it did. So Solana.
All right, so we can go Solana direction or let's go to the creator direction. So okay. Earlier today, I talked a lot about creator and fan monetization, and then we had Ronil from Audius here as well, and he spoke a lot about that stuff. So today, Brave has about 1.3 million verified creators on the platform and 46 million monthly active users. It seems like y'all are starting to lean harder into the opportunity for publishers and content creators online. Where is this all going, and how is Brave part of it, and how is BAT part of that?
I mentioned YouTube. So YouTube started demonetizing creators in 2015 for various reasons. It wasn't all about censorship or political stuff. It was just sometimes they said, we're not going to pay you, or oh, your monetization has been turned down. You're on this lower tier now. And a lot of creators got mad. Now, there's been a competition among platforms. Creators go to Indiegogo to do a project, or they go to Kickstarter. They will run a Patreon, which they link to in their account information on YouTube. They'll try to get their real fans supporting them. And they can do YouTube Super Chats. That's a native tipping system. Twitch, there's bits. But these heterogeneous systems are kind of a drag, a source of friction on the true fans. We wanted to do it all in the browser in a unified way, and we're doing that. So we've built, I mentioned Playlist on top of the YouTube client, which is just an HTML video player. We're paying a lot of YouTubers among our 1,300,000 creators. Every month, we're settling, I think, 6 million BAT last month to these creators, and we want to make it even more convenient for fans to take the ad revenue they get, or their own funds, or both, and give them to their favorite creators. So if you think about Patreon, it's taking 5% as a platform fee. You have to go to a site and comply with its rules and suffer its censorship. We don't think that that's necessary. We can do 2.5%, and you can run your own site, and you can use Brave as the payment rail, if you will.
All right, so we just talked a little bit about Solana. So you were just at Solana Breakpoint a few weeks ago. You all made some exciting announcements there. What did you announce? Why did you announce it? What led into the announcement? How did you pick Solana? Just all of that stuff.
You can tell I'm excited about Solana. So we've been looking at multiple chains ever since we were on Ethereum because we view the future, as in need of competition among chains. We're going to see consolidation eventually. I think you guys may be right. That comes down to 2 chains. Who knows? But in the near term, there are multiple chains where there's a lot of innovation, and it's easier to copy design than code. So there's a lot of cross-fertilization of ideas and design. And we wanted that to be part of our self-custody wallet, which we've rolled out now, which is coming to our mobile versions of Brave iOS very soon this month, and I'm not sure, I think Android's this month too. So having that wallet be multi-chain was important to us, and Solana has been interesting to me for a while. I knew Anatoly, I knew somebody else at Solana from Firefox OS days when he was at Qualcomm. So I like the team, I like their low-level performance hacking skills and approach, and we like the speed, and we like other properties of the network. And we thought, what if we could actually experiment with taking basic attention token, instead of moving it from Ethereum to another chain? People always feel like abandonment, like the Ethereum bros are all mad at us. It's like, no, it's still on Ethereum, but you can lock it up in Wormhole and it pops out on Solana or other networks. And there's, I think, 75,000 BAT now. It's gone up a couple orders of magnitude in just the last few weeks. We're going to let BAT migrate, as it will, to Solana and even settle there, which would require a settlement partner like FTX, say. And the fees will be so much lower that essentially it could be a zero-cost migration if we can make the stars align on avoiding smart contract operations on Ethereum. So that's exciting to us. And we also have the Themis project to talk about. But we're innovating across multiple chains, and we had to pick one to lean into. We did a sort of request for comments and code from many chains. Solana stepped up early. That impressed us. We also realized with multi-chain dApps, they aren't necessarily going to say, I have a preferred chain. If I see Solana supported in my wallet or browser, I will use Solana. They may leave it open. If the user also leaves it open, we need a default. This is just like when you type keywords into a browser, what search engine do you go to? In Vivaldi, it's Bing. In a lot of browsers, including Safari, of course, it's Google. In Brave, it's Brave Search. Well, because we have a search engine too. We wanted a default network for dApps, and we decided to announce that Solana was that default network. That was the big news, I think, in Lisbon.
So y'all are now working on kind of moving BAT over, and all the payment creator monetization stuff will happen there, which is awesome. You've also alluded to this thing called Themis, which y'all have been working on, I think, for a year and a half, 2 years now.
Yep.
What is Themis, and why is it relevant to the mission of Brave?
If you think about Brave, we're not just this universal app or super app, the browser, with the added value of blockchain, multiple chains. We're trying to take a lot of huge systems, which are hundreds of billions of revenue annually, like ad tech, let's say, dominated by Google's ad exchange, and turn them right side up so the user comes first. That means you have to do things in the browser. It isn't that expensive, doesn't use much battery. So we do ad matching if you opt into it, only if you turn it on, in the browser. We do blind signatures, or we're moving toward ZK snarks. With Themis, the design is a black box accumulator that can accumulate your click and impression log privately, encrypted, and then mint zero-knowledge proofs. We're looking at Palace from O1 Labs used in Mina, but we're open to other things. It's also an exciting space in zero-knowledge proof land. And with Solana, instead of sending these to a central server or trying to batch them to avoid the costs of a slow network, we can just put them on chain, and there's no privacy loss. And the ad buyers can verify ad performance without compromising user privacy. That's the other key feature with Themis.
So, yeah, I mean, this is one of the coolest things I've seen in a while. Today we have these huge ad exchanges at Google and other places, and the vision here ultimately is to be able to have a decentralized ad exchange where people are basically the limit buys, limit sell, or whatever, the matching is happening on the user's browser, and the user can prove to the advertiser or the publisher that they are who they say they are, right?
Yes.
This is one of the coolest concepts I think we've seen. People have been talking about zero-knowledge proofs in crypto for years, and they usually talk about credit scoring and these other kinds of things. But I think this will probably actually be the first large-scale instantiation of that kind of an idea.
We're nothing if not ambitious, but it's working. We've been growing month over month. We've been growing the BAT system too, and looking forward to Themis on Solana.
Cool. So we've talked a little bit about ad exchanges. We've talked about privacy. We've talked about creator monetization stuff in the browser. You're doing a lot. You have a lot of ambitions here.
Search.
Sir, I forgot about that one. That one's kind of big. What I've always found most interesting about Brave is that the browser is an infinitely large canvas that you can do anything on. Y'all have already started to tweak things with Twitter and YouTube and some of the other major properties. As you think about, crypto is going to evolve and mature, the browsers are going to keep evolving the web. How do you think about where do you paint the brush in the Brave canvas with crypto specifically?
So glad you asked, because we're not just interested in the fan-creator relationship. There's custom work. We can do it robustly on YouTube and Twitter, put that tip button in. But we also want to do things like disintermediate Amazon in e-commerce, because it's not just Amazon as the intermediary. They're the portal, and they're like Google in that if you're a small merchant, they may not treat you right. So what if you could have your own website, and instead of having all this credit card risk that users face and the friction of signing up and putting your credit card at risk in that merchant's server or whatever vendor they're using, you could do something possibly paid in crypto in the browser. So we're looking at how to get into the merchant flows without having to hack everybody's JavaScript. And one of the convenient ways to do that is the interchange process itself, which means you need some MasterCard capability. But if you have that, you might even be able to let users use their crypto self-custody in a way that can flow through that change. So we want e-commerce in the browser, one-click e-commerce in the browser. Everybody likes it in Amazon, but it shouldn't be a property of one site. And I think that's where the deep canvas of the browser matters to users the most. Users love the freedom of the web. They love finding a new site. But the sites are in this somewhat adversarial relationship. They're always trying to capture the user and lock you in, especially by collecting your data and making it so that you won't go anywhere else. What if your browser helps fight back so you can just go wherever you want, you can keep your data, you can keep your crypto, keep your keys, keep your identity in your self-custody wallet. You have the freedom now, you have more leverage, you can be more valuable to those merchants and portals, and they will pay a more fair price for you.
All right, earlier today we had Matt Ball here talk about the metaverse. Obviously a lot of talk of modalities, rendering systems. How does the browser fit into the future of the metaverse, if at all?
So I was at Silicon Graphics out of grad school, so I went through the whole 3D progression when it was on workstations and then in Jurassic Park. Hey, this is a Unix system, I know this. That was an SGI 3D file system visualizer she was looking at. It wasn't Unix command lines. And then SGI was already in trouble at that point because, as Jim Clark foresaw, the VLSI hardware to do 3D graphics was shrinking into GPU and now on a system on a chip. And I, at Mozilla, made friends with Otoy founders, Jules Orbach in particular, and we hit it off because we saw that there was a role not only for the browser and the web to evolve into real high, physics accurate, optics accurate rendering, but that you'd want the browser, again, for sovereignty. For not only fans or personal sovereignty, but for creators. So one of the things that Jules and the company did that was pretty cool that I wrote about when I was at Mozilla is they figured out a watermarking scheme that could be woven into compression that they designed in a way that couldn't be extracted without degrading the quality of the video. And this kind of idea is going to be important in the metaverse because you're already seeing people complain, you stole my Bored Ape 8-bit art, right? Well, right. How can you prove it's yours?
You can copy the JPEG kind of thing.
You can copy the bits. But in the metaverse, there should be watermarking. There should be provenance chains and proof of reality even. There's a neat paper I can point you to on reality attestations that you'll need to prove that something is real. This goes from anti-fraud to art to all sorts of interpersonal things where you want to be sure something's authentic. So talking to Jules, I could see that there was a future you could evolve to, and the web is evolutionary. So as you evolve, people say, oh, text, nobody reads anymore. Well, I don't think that's true.
I read.
People read. and text is immortal. So you're going to have text. You're going to have all those, Iron Man heads-up displays will have text on them. But you'll also have the full depth of field of vision in 3D. You'll have hyperspace information visualization systems. So text gets subsumed into this larger world. And the web protocols, as we know them, may become legacy or they may sort of evolve in ways that are hard to recognize in the future. But you want to be along for the ride. You want to have those lead users. And that's why I think browsers have to innovate. Browsers always are in danger of being treated as, that's last year's thing. Apps have replaced browsers. Heads-up visors or headgear have replaced browsers. People don't like the Oculus browser, by the way. It's not true. What you find is that they neglect the browser, they invent something custom, it's not as good, it's tied into a narrow web-like system of content when it should be the whole web, and the browser comes back. And this has happened every 10 years of my life since I was 30.